What an incredible life of public service, sacrifice, and dedication. Hearing his accomplishments as an athlete, a decorated soldier throughout many deployment submissions, and a decorated police officer and later K-9 officer, he almost sounds unreal.
Officer Lehner's funeral was followed by a procession to his final resting place. The playing of taps marked the beginning of the final part of today's services. Officer Lehner was laid to rest this afternoon at Forest Lawn Cemetery. News 4's Jen Shantz was at the cemetery where officers said goodbye one last time. Jen?
Good evening to you, Christy. Yes, the final commitment for Officer Craig Lehner was fit for a military and a police hero. The 9-year veteran of the Buffalo Police Department and a former Army National Guardsman was honored not only by the taps, as you just heard, but an honorary honor guard and a ceremonial folding of the flag, as well as a 21-gun salute. Something not always present during a solemn military and police funeral, though. The release of white doves. The surprise came at the beginning of Officer Lehner's burial today as a way to symbolize his everlasting spirit and hope. It was a sprinkle of optimism on this very sad day, a reminder for Lehner's loved ones of his eternal grace, the pastor pointed out. Shield stood right in front of Lehner's casket as he said goodbye to his partner and friend. Buffalo police say around 8,000 people attended today's services at both the Key Bank Center in downtown Buffalo and here at Forest Lawn.
The massive amount of people that came out were holding flags, putting their hands on their heart, saluting the casket. Again, Western New York, Buffalo, we're a city of good neighbors, and today proved it. People came out, people they had no idea, probably maybe never even met a police officer in their life. They came out to support it and show that this community cares.
Even more proof of that, actually, as I walked up to do my live shot here this evening at 5:30, a few cars drove in and said, hey, I wasn't able to make it to the burial. I wasn't able to make it to the funeral at Key Bank, but I'd like to pay my respects now. So people are coming after work. Those who weren't able to pay their respects to Officer Lehner and the Lehner family are doing so now. And that, again, is even more evidence of how much this 34-year-old officer impacted his city. I'll be back here again live at 6 o'clock, but for now, reporting from Forest Lawn Cemetery, Jen Shantz, News 4 at 5:30. Christy?
All right, Jen, thank you. Right now, we want to take a second to tell you about Officer Lehner's life and accomplishments. He was 34 years old. He graduated from Akron High School in 2001. He moved to Buffalo in order to become a police officer for the city. His family followed him to show their support. Officer Lehner joined the force in 2008. He began his career in the E District, located on Bailey Avenue on the city's east side. He later became a K-9 officer and most recently a member of the city's underwater recovery team. He joined the U.S. Army National Guard after his junior year of high school and served with the 105th Military Police. He served in Iraq and Guantanamo Bay, and he was certified to dive at Guantanamo Bay. Lehner was decorated during his service. He earned the Army Commendation Medal, which is awarded for those who distinguish themselves by heroism, meritorious achievement, or meritorious service. He also earned the Air Assault Badge. It's awarded by the U.S. Army for successful completion of the Air Assault School. He also earned the Global War on Terrorism Medal. It recognizes military members who have deployed overseas in direct service to the war on terror. Many officers stood at attention as others led a procession to the Key Bank Center this morning. It was obviously a very emotional day for men and women who put their lives on the line to serve our community every day. News 4's Callan Gray talked to some of those officers today. She joins us now live outside the Key Bank Center. Callan?
Christy, one of the most emotional moments before the funeral started is when the K-9 officers lined up here behind me on the sidewalk as the procession led Officer Lehner's casket to Key Bank Center. As we were waiting for the procession, some of the K-9 partners were barking, but once the procession arrived, they too stood at attention and it was silent as thousands of members of law enforcement saluted Officer Lehner. Members of the Marine and K-9 team for the Niagara Regional Police were here as part of the funeral service as well as part of the procession. The agency in total had more than 50 officers here, and many of them helped in the search for Officer Lehner on the Niagara River. We also spoke with a Royal Canadian Mountain Patrol sergeant who was also part of the search for 3 days. He says they were on the water doing patrols the day Officer Lehner went missing, and they needed to be here to pay their final respects. This search personally affected so many of these officers and even retired members of the Buffalo Police Force. We met a 30-year veteran of the force who retired in 2004. He never met Officer Lehner, but says as a former K-9 officer himself, this hits close to home, and he was proud to be here to pay his final respects.
It's a show of respect. It just shows the bond between other officers. And I've seen 3 of these, and they don't get any better. You know, it's just like a knife cutting through you. You know.
He still carries the badge of his K-9 partner, Bonnie, with him. He, like so many of others, have told us that it was an unbreakable bond that Officer Lehner and SHIELD had, and that you really have to be a K-9 officer to understand that connection. After the service, the officers, those thousands of officers, came back out here and once again lined both sides of Perry Street, again saluting as Officer Lehner's casket began to move towards Forest Lawn Cemetery. Coming up tonight in just half an hour on News 4 at 6, we are going to talk to a New York State trooper who personally knew Officer Lehner. Reporting live outside KeyBank Center, Callan Gray, News 4.
All right, Kellen, thank you. A show of support from the Buffalo Fire Department as they hung the American flag from 2 fire truck ladders today. The fire department helped in the search for Officer Lehner. They stood along the police department to pay their respects today. Our team coverage of the funeral for Officer Craig Lehner continues tonight, coming up at 5:30 and 6 o'clock still. And up next, support from strangers. Why people who never met Craig Lehner felt that they had to be a part of his service today.